Hello, my name is Travis Morgan. I'm a proud Yorta Yorta man for Shepparton, Victoria. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country upon which we live and work throughout Australia. Sydney studio is located on the country of the Gadigal people in a part of the Eora Nation. The Melbourne studio is located on the countries of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and the Monara Centre of Regional Excellence is located on my country, the Yorta Yorta people. And you know, this project is pretty much led by Yorta Yorta people and for Yorta Yorta people and the broader community. We'd also like to recognise the living culture and beliefs and relationship that Yorta Yorta people and other First Nations people have to land and water.
We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we're meeting on today, the people of Takesta, Seminole and Miccosukee tribes.
So Shepparton is based in a rural town of, in the rural region of Victoria. It's 200 k's north of Melbourne and 720 k's south of Sydney, in a very flood wetland area, floodplain area, and very broad in terms of environment. Yorta Yorta is one of over 200 nations across Australia. We're down here in the pink, in the green. Our country covers across wetlands, rocky outcrop, and also river country. We settle on both sides of the Murray River, which is on Victorian side and the New South Wales side. And our country very much tells the story of the design of the Monara Centre of Regional Excellence. It was one key area that the people wanted to see throughout the design.
Australia is a nation of a rich and intense shared existence between Indigenous and colonial history. It is one of conflict and tension, and it's a long road to reconciliation. From terra nullius to the White Australia policy, civil rights in Australia over contested lands, rights and ownership, through to the recent failed referendum at the national level for a voice to Parliament, and then the even more recent enshrining of treaty at the state level in Victoria. This is a story that's both long and winding, but very recent and very much ongoing. As the civil rights movement in Australia grew, the presence of the Aboriginal flag grew in prominence, of yellow, of red and of black, uniting a multitude of histories, stories and nations under one flag, united by one sun, one sky and one country. This symbol was privately owned, though, until 2022, when it was purchased by the Commonwealth and transferred to the public commons, providing a great design opportunity for the building, a project with self-determination at its core. Through conception, design, construction and occupation, this is a unifying statement for a multitude of stories, histories and connections. Monara means thunder. It is loud and it is proud. It is a regenerative, enduring life force. The Yorta Yorta story and the story of Monara is a story that encapsulates people, history, legacy and events over time. It is about education and betterment. From the Kamaraganja mission, part of the early assimilation practices of the British colonies, came the night school. While Aboriginal people weren't allowed official schooling beyond early primary level, the night school provided opportunities for further learning of reading and arithmetic, but also traditional history and practices. This is a culture based in education and sharing of knowledge. It is a story of activism and empowerment. The Kamaraganja walk-off followed a decade of lobbying and resistance, where residents survived on rations and worked without pay. Upon leaving, they resettled on the lands of Monara on the outskirts of Shepparton. It is a story of sports and culture, the invincible spirit of sporting excellence, of Marngrook and the pre-colonial Indigenous games, where sport is a vessel for community outreach to something greater. It is about connection and shared striving. This is a lineage that is central to the Yorta Yorta story today. It is one of education, of political activism and of excellence. It's the story of self-determination. The Monara Centre for Regional Excellence states a claim. It builds upon the Rumballara Football Netball Club, located on the northeast portion of the sporting precinct in Shepparton, in the floodplains where it's divided from the community from a canal, and it bridges the gap to the front door. From out the back, amongst the factories and the sheds, to the heart of the precinct. It is no longer divided. It is in the centre. It makes a statement. The project was realised through conversation, around the dinner table, through active listening. Conversations with elders, with artists, students, community and sports clubs. Conversations in footy boots and netball jerseys, after training and homework club, sharing a meal. We need our building to reflect a future for our people, for our kids, to be proud of who they are. This building is about leading for the future generations. It's about layering of stories and histories and identities, translated into a series of spatial relationships with connection to country throughout. A central courtyard with spaces for teaching, for study, for offices and gathering, radiating outwards. Always connected to land, open, accessible and flexible. Spaces laid with meaning, thematic and cultural, individual and collective identities. And extending out of the building into the landscape. Indoor and outdoor connections throughout. No internal room is an island. The story of Monara is the story of the Dungala River, the Murray River. It is the life force connection throughout, the storyteller, the rainbow serpent. It is across time. It is shifting, it is evolving and non-linear. It gives life, regenerates, gives refuge and connection. It is the life force connection. It is represented in the Nyanyak line at the Rumballara. It tells the stories and connections of Yorta Yorta and country. It is complex, evolving, and it sits outside time. It extends into the building, through the heart and beyond the new Monara Centre. It is found at the heart and creating new spaces and environments. A central courtyard upon arrival, a welcoming acknowledgement at the heart on the way into the centre. The sun's overhead, our arms are wide open, come on in, let's have a yarn. This is a space for connection, communion, gathering and celebration, a space for storytelling. The learning environment extends beyond the classroom into the landscape, where Indigenous planting has been developed with local elders and landscape architects' bush projects. Bush tucker gardens of kumbunji, cherry bullard and young gum leaves give lessons on Indigenous cooking, bush medicine and traditional bushcraft. Sand circles and ceremonial spaces for performance and gathering. Spaces for quiet solitude, reflection and conversation. A space where people walk softly. The incorporation of local planting ecosystems back into the site, further embedding country into Monara. It is of the landscape, it is not distinct from it. The co-design process involved an active listening and dialogue and learning. It wasn't about occupying every space and position, but coming with open eyes, ears and hearts. Engagement with artists, curators and elders and students created the artworks that are seen throughout the building. Creating spaces for sharing, our space, our story, but open for everyone. And representing elders, everyone. Elders and artists teaching younger generations, sharing stories, creating artworks from country, pigments from smoking ceremonies, local quarries and flora. Elders and students working together to tell their stories, show their totems and connections, laid upon and throughout the building. The wallpaper of the Elders' Lounge tells the story of the long-necked turtle. The ceiling unifies under the starry night sky. The carpets created by students in language and connected to country. the floors and paving of pigments of the local quarries. The project opened with a ceremonial procession from the original football netball club to the new centre, across the new linking divide, literally bridging the divide. This was a celebration of connection, honouring the past and uplifting the future. A smoking ceremony cleansed and welcomed the students, staff and visitors to the new centre. Tradition, education and pride on display throughout. This was about ownership. This is ours, come on in. Menara is a place for mob to come together, but is also a place for everyone. It stands as a beacon within our wider community, welcoming, inclusive and filled with spirit. Thank you.
Maybe I can just ask one kind of clarification question. I really understood this point about the value of narration and storytelling, which you emphasize quite a lot, you know. But I think it would be interesting if you could speak a little bit about the way in which this narration actually helped the organization of the building. You showed the plan and all that, but could you somehow speak about the build-up between listening and also the outcome more directly in the design?
Yeah, well, the project had been gathering momentum for about 10 years before ARM were involved. Travis and the community had been sowing the seeds, trying to build momentum, trying to get this thing going. And there was it had taken a lot of time, there was a lot of fatigue. And so a big part of the project was about building trust, building ownership and building that personal connection. It's in a part of Australia where there's a lot of racism, there's a lot of tension and a lot of conflict, and about creating spaces where Yorta Yorta feel at home, they feel connected. One of the amazing things was that we might put forward a proposal that we feel is really strong and really bold, and the feedback was, we want to be proud of who we are, but we want it to be welcoming to everyone. Indigenous, non-Indigenous, this is about sharing our story and our history with everyone and being welcoming. And so it's about layering all those stories, multitude of different stories throughout, and finding those individual connections so that everyone could find themselves in the spaces as well.
I guess I'm asking about the spatial repercussions. I understand things like the in-between space between the inside and the edge of the outside, but I think the organization of the interior, how you respond spatially to the kind of art of listening in some way, it's kind of very important part of what you're doing. But maybe other people have some other comments.
Yes, I'm intrigued by the flag, and the flag becomes the primary symbol. I mean, the intention and the program, I think, is wonderful, but I'm intrigued by how architectonically it's then carried through. And of course, Ashton McDoodle, which you are, right,
Yep.
has this amazing history of emblemic architecture, shall we call it. I mean, some of it quite extraordinary, quite bizarre, dare I say. Now, here, of course, you're in a different context to the Melbourne one, which one's familiar with in your work. And in a way, the strength of the office has always been in this sort of the bits, the shouting even sometimes of the bits and pieces and compositions. Here, of course, it's mostly seen from the sky. I wonder how many people in whatever part of the community actually see the building from the sky, as we're privileged in doing. That's number one, so that in a way can I make a terrible analogy? It's rather like a tin of sardines, where you show the notion of the sardine, but the sardine itself is something else. And my question is, it's a box in which, on the other hand, you have to engage, and therefore you have to make openings in it. Once that primary statement has been made about the flag and the how, you have a great opportunity with the carcass piece of the circle, where you capture the river, etc., etc. But that's again a sort of symbol in a way. And then you have to make openings and engage with the gardens and the animal, whatever else. And then you're caught in a sort of mannerist trap. What sort of opening do you make, and do you repeat it? which you have done. So it could be argued that that is the actual architecture that you see and engage with, is the inside-out thing via these openings. But the flag is still the key thing. The flag is the precious thing that the indigenous population has at last got a flag. And your building is that flag laid on the ground, then three-dimensionalized, maybe. So I think this is to me the tectonic issue and the symbolic issue, which again I come back. Your particular office has this extraordinary and sometimes absurd, brilliant history of. Must be quite interesting, as you come from there and you have to do this, and then you have to do that.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting thing, and I think as architects we fall into the trap of the bird's eye view of the building, which isn't how we experience the building. We experience it on the ground at the street level and in a personal sense. One thing that I think with a flag like, what's a good photo to show? The colours of the flag are so bold and so strong that you, like the American flag, the red, white and blue, you see it in abstracted forms and you understand that connection to the country, to the flag, and it's very similar with the Aboriginal flag. I think sorry to jump around. This is at the Tent Embassy at Parliament in Canberra. The flag isn't actually really prominent, but the build-up of the colours, you still have that sense of identity and that connection to it. And I think it is about that kind of signposts throughout the building as you move through. And I think you're exactly right. Like to talk about the building in isolation outside of the landscape and outside of the people, it does the project a disservice. It's about that synthesising of many complex ideas and peoples and relationships where the project comes together.
Yeah, I think I have a similar question because I'm a bit curious about the relationship with the roof design, with a very strong central spine, with interior space, because I didn't see anything like it, because coming into the interior space or by seeing the plan, like a central axis is not like on the same line of the roof division line, but how these two works together?
Well, there's probably two parts to it. The flag is this kind of unifying gesture of this many stories, and that's what the roof does. It's kind of, the canopy that provides the shelter for all the things that are going on within there. And then there's the connection to the landscape from within the building. So there's courtyard at the centre, there's access out from all points of the building. There's quite a complex security arrangement within the building for the different user groups. We've partnered with La Trobe University, Melbourne University, state government, Manara, all these different parties who have different access constraints, and so it's quite a complex way of figuring out those spatial arrangements, but still feeling as though you're always connected to each other, to the landscape, and you can always move from the building into those landscapes as well. So probably the best photo of the internal relation to the room is this central kind of atrium space of the library. So off this central library, all the classroom spaces, which are kind of at a more intimate scale, operate, and then into the landscape. From here, on the left of the image, you're entering into the courtyard, so it's kind of that community communion space where you come together.
Thank you so much. Thank you.